Howdy there, and welcome to another action-packed episode of Reese Rambles, this one being episode number 18. And just a very quick note at the beginning, just to let you know, if you're watching this on YouTube on my second channel, I'm going to include just a few very basic clips just to illustrate what I'm talking about, purely because I'm talking about other YouTube channels in this one, and I guess it makes sense to show people what they look like, as I have that platform to be able to do that. But if you are an audio-only listener on the podcasting platforms, you're really not missing much. I just wanted to let you know that that is an option if you have a choice between the two different platforms. But either way, it's going to be good, I promise. Well, I can't guarantee that it's going to be good. Obviously, I've only just literally sat down and started recording it, but I hope it's good. I like the concept. So, as mentioned, I'm going to talk about some YouTube channels that have inspired me. Now, you probably sat there thinking, oh, you know, he's going to talk about LGR and, I don't know, the 8-Bit Guy, Nostalgia Nerd and RMC and people like that. And I'm not. I'm not going to talk about tech channels at all, retro gaming, retro tech, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm also not going to talk about the other kind of fellow smaller channels that are my friends. These people will have an opportunity to get a shout out at some point in the future, but that's not what this particular episode is all about. Now, I think it's very important when you make videos to watch a lot of stuff that's kind of outside of your usual sphere of influence, really. I think it really kind of shows in the end product as well. You know, I could sit here and I could watch, you know, Adrian Black and Jan Beta and Noel's Retro Lab. And, you know, I do watch all of those channels, don't get me wrong. But if I only drew inspiration from those channels for my own channel, then it would basically just be a carbon copy of what those guys are doing. And you kind of have to find your own voice. And I think the best way to do that is to watch stuff that you enjoy that's not necessarily within your own genre, and to experiment with kind of creating your own stuff. And here are some examples of some channels that I watch with my wife on a Friday and Saturday night. YouTube is, I think I've explained this before, but YouTube is the kind of the primary entertainment platform in our house. It's very rare for us to watch broadcast TV because it's generally just all crap. We do watch some stuff on Netflix and very occasionally Amazon Prime. But yeah, predominantly we generally just fire up YouTube and we have a list of channels and, you know, that we watch regularly that are putting out regular content. And I've actually taken inspiration from some of these channels for my own content, despite the fact that they're very much not retro computing and retro tech stuff. So I thought I'd give a few a mention here. Of course, feel free to check them out if any of them sound appealing to you. I'll put the links down in the description in the usual place. But I think it's about time I got on with it. So the first channel I want to talk about is called Sorted Food. And if you hadn't guessed, it's a channel all about food. Now, these are five guys who started sort of 10 plus years ago, living in a student house together. Two of them were studying to become professional chefs, and three of them were studying other things. And the original concept for their channel was showing fellow students how to cook stuff on the cheap, you know, cheap and healthy, and using very kind of basic setup. And obviously it was kind of the two professional chefs teaching the other guys kind of how to cook. And that was kind of the whole concept of the channel. And this whole thing has grown into this massive professional operation where they've got you know, they publish books and they've got their own app, and they've got a studio in London, and they have a whole team behind them, a whole sort of you know, food prep team and a whole editing team. And yeah, you know, these guys film mainly kind of studio-based stuff in London about food. And they also travel to different parts of the world. So they recently did a series where they went to the like the Deep South in America and did kind of Southern American food. And it was them kind of visiting different places and trying different ingredients and different dishes and stuff. And then that kind of culminated in them cooking for the locals and seeing what the locals thought about their kind of interpretation of their food. Really, really interesting series. And I think it's been inspiring to see them kind of build this whole thing from nothing. And, you know, they're still very grounded, still very wholesome, and there's still a sort of a very kind of general, a very genuine chemistry between them as well, which is really nice to see. But for us in particular, the time we discovered their channel was sort of 2020, when we were stuck at home a lot and times were looking pretty bleak, to be honest. And we watched kind of their full back catalogue of videos, and it got to a point where we got to their current videos, and of course they were at home. They couldn't use their fancy studio setup, so it was them sort of right back to basics in their own kitchens at home, cooking stuff, and then Zoom calling each other at the end and kind of talking about the food that they cooked and having a nice chat about it, which was kind of how a lot of us were living our lives at the time. And it was very sort of relatable and very, very endearing. And I think that's what I really like about the channel, because the videos are all really fantastic quality. They're really well put together, really well edited. The audio's great. And they're releasing 2 of these videos a week. So it's a really kind of grueling schedule that they've committed themselves to. But everything that they do is really high quality. And, they are very sort of genuine people. But to see it all kind of be stripped back to basics and to see them kind of doing that again, sort of where they first started, really, it was very relatable at a time when, I think we needed that kind of stuff. And, of course, now life is a bit more back to normal, and they're back to their usual studio and world traveling shenanigans and going from strength to strength. I mean, one of the original founders, one of the actual chefs, has gone on to work at a big fancy restaurant in London now, and he's kind of been replaced by one of the chefs from kind of their food team, who's slotted in really nicely and really funny guy. So basically, their videos follow one of a few different formats. They have a show where they check out pretentious ingredients, and then they kind of taste those and get what they call the normals, i.e. the people who aren't the chefs, to kind of give their opinions on them, which is always pretty funny. And they look at like crowdfunded kitchen gadgets and that kind of thing, and kind of review those. But I think what they're best known for, and what their audience kind of loves the most, myself included, is their Pass It On format, where they basically, the concept is that between the 5 of them, they get 15 minutes each in the kitchen, and it's up to the first person to decide what to cook from a big table full of ingredients. And then after 15 minutes, they have to drop what they're doing, and the next person comes in and takes over. Now, the twist being that they don't know what they're going to be cooking from the start, and they're not allowed to communicate at all. So obviously, if it starts with a professional chef, he might try something a bit too fancy, and the next guy to come in just doesn't get it at all and doesn't understand what he's doing. Maybe even just shoves the whole thing to one side and starts again. And it can be quite funny, like the chemistry between them and kind of their reactions at the end when the people who've gone on earlier on are kind of wondering what the hell the later people in the chain were thinking, and how they didn't get the sort of concept that they were going for. And anyway, the reason I'm explaining all of this in such great detail is because they turned this into an actual live show at Christmas, which we went to see. And it was really, really well put together, and it was a really good night out. And to see someone go from kind of YouTube to big studio with a proper crew and a Christmas live show was really impressive to me, particularly as someone who has a YouTube channel. I mean, it's not the kind of thing that I really aspire to do longer term, but it's like, where is the limit? How far can you take this? And the videos that they're putting together on their channel are, if you've ever watched stuff like the weekend early morning cookery shows that we have here, the live shows like, Sunday Brunch or Saturday Kitchen and stuff like that. The stuff that they're doing is it's just miles over and above that kind of broadcast TV stuff. And just inspiring to see people putting out such good quality videos. But also, like I say, back in 2020, that kind of personal connection as well. And just the fact that they are just such genuinely nice guys and have such a genuine chemistry. So one of my favourite channels, and my first recommendation for today. So the next 2 channels that I want to talk about, and I'm going to group them together for reasons which will become obvious very shortly, are Casey and Van Neistat. Now, you may know the name Casey Neistat. He was kind of the first huge channel on YouTube, and in fact, I don't know if he was the first person to reach 1 million subscribers. But he was basically like the Mr. Beast of his day. He was kind of the YouTube guy. But he and his brother Van first started in the early 2000s doing vlogs. And these guys were, they were into like surfing and skating and kind of all that kind of counterculture stuff that was kind of cool at the time. And they uploaded videos of them doing this stuff to their own website in the kind of the pre-YouTube days. And they got picked up by HBO, the big TV network in America, who gave them their own show, which they put on at 2 o'clock in the morning. And of course, as a result, nobody watched it. But I think the thing that makes both of these guys interesting is that they're from a professional filmmaking background. So they do vlogs, which of course you'd associate with someone shoving a camera in their own face and talking rubbish for 15, 20 minutes. But that's very much not the style of their videos. You know, they are from their point of view, and they do kind of tell a story of this is kind of where they kind of diverge a bit. So in the aftermath of the TV show, essentially they had a falling out. They're now talking again, but they had a bit of a falling out. Casey moved to New York and made daily vlogs for 800 days in a row. Initially, he wanted to do daily vlogs for a year and decided he loved it so much that he wanted to stretch it for 2 years. And then he decided to just carry on and see how long he could take it. And 800 days was where he broke the streak. And Van Neistat moved into a cabin in the woods in the middle of nowhere, in the desert somewhere. Two quite different approaches to filmmaking, really, but also kind of the same in that they're very kind of arty and very sort of tightly edited to music. There's always kind of an underlying message and an underlying kind of subplot that kind of all comes together in the end. And very much kind of like a classic sort of filmmaking approach to making videos. But their vlogs, you know, more so in Casey's case, where they are very much about him and, oh, you know, I have to go to this meeting on the other side of the city or something. Here's something crazy that I saw on the way. Oh, and by the way, here's how the meeting went, kind of thing. And it would be very easy to make those videos very boring. But he doesn't, you know, because he kind of incorporates those kind of filmmaking techniques and the 3-act structure and the B-roll shots and the resolution and the whatever stuff that I'm not really qualified to talk about. You know, they're all like these mini movies. And you know, for him to have done 800 of these in a row, and he is actually back to regularly producing content on YouTube. He did take a break for a few years, but he is now back, thankfully. And his videos are as good as ever. And I do find them really interesting to watch. They're just the way they're structured and the way they're paced and that kind of thing. And his brother Van Neistat, obviously he kind of takes a different approach, a much slower approach to life. And he does these really sort of arty, sort of high concept. Ultimately, what they boil down to is it's basically him in his shed building something to solve a problem. But there's always references to like classical literature and sort of self-improvement stuff, and you know, some quite spiritual stuff. I mean, the name of his channel is The Spirited Man, and that's kind of the concept of it, kind of you know, him finding himself and this kind of stuff. And his videos are not like anything else that I've seen on YouTube. So for those two, obviously Casey just showing that vlogging can be interesting. It's not something that I personally do. Although he's perhaps inspired a few of the things that I've done on my second channel, maybe more with the kind of editing. And some of the stuff that I've done, like off the back of that for, you know, like the RMC live streams and that kind of thing. And for Van, you know, I don't know if I could ever kind of reach that level of filmmaking. You know, every one of his videos is a joy to watch. It's a treat to watch. And I think if you're listening to this particular ramble, and there's one channel that I can recommend out of all of these, and of course, I think they're all brilliant for their own reasons. I think Van Neistat is probably the one that I would say to go and check out. The next group of channels I think could fairly be described as Japanese channels, or more specifically, English-speaking people living and making videos in Japan. And I'm going to hopefully rattle through these quite quickly because there's a couple that I want to mention. And we first discovered these back in 2018 when we were planning our own trip to Japan, which went very well thanks to the advice of some of these people and others. And of course, you go onto YouTube when you're planning a holiday and you search for top 10 things to do in Tokyo or whatever. And there are loads of people who've made videos, and there are certain people that you just kind of connect with and kind of click with, and that you find particularly relatable. Now, I'm not going to lead with the big obvious one, although he will get a mention very shortly because he has been a very big inspiration to me. But first, I want to mention a channel called Charmeleon, which is, of course, Pokemon reference. And she's a Canadian living in Japan called Sharla. Now, she used to live in Korea, in South Korea, and she's a very well-travelled, a very intelligent lady who speaks lots of different languages, and very, very kind of driven and stuff as well. And she makes kind of a vlog type, first-person type, point of view type content about her life and about all the interesting things that she gets up to. And I think there was a recent series of videos that she did where her and her business partner, so she runs like a mail order well, it's like a Patreon-backed type thing where they send out postcards and stickers and stuff from Japan to people all over the world. And she has a business partner in that. And together they bought a house in Tokyo, which was very run down, and did a series of videos kind of renovating that and turning it into an Airbnb, which you can now book and now stay in. And she's very much a crazy cat lady and very kind of obsessed with her cats. And she called the house Neko Neko Inn, which is Neko being the Japanese word for cat. And they've done an amazing job on this house, and it was just really interesting to see. But just an example of kind of one of her projects and one of the things that she gets up to. She did another series where there's like Pokemon themed manhole covers all over Japan, like really bright, colourful ones, and some of them are in some really interesting locations. And she did a bit of an ongoing thing as well, where she was kind of traveling all over the country, hunting those down and looking for them, which was just kind of, it's a really cool thing to do. And so I wanted to give her a mention because I wanted to give her channel a chance to kind of stand on its own 2 feet, really. Because I'm going to mention her other half, Chris Broad, abroad in Japan, who is kind of, he's the big daddy of, J-vloggers, as they call them. He's got like over 3 million subscribers now. And, apparently they've been in a relationship for a very long time, and lots of other people have been watching their channel and kind of speculating about it. And very recently they made a big announcement about it, and it was all kind of very nice, and that kind of parasocial relationship stuff where you get a bit obsessed with people that you don't actually know. But really interesting to see and really cool to see. But Chris Broad is his channel abroad in Japan. He's another guy who is from a sort of a professional filmmaking background, and his videos are they're absolutely epic in scale. He's got drone shots. He's got, the guy's got, God knows how much his lens collection is worth, but the guy's absolutely obsessed with, using the perfect lens for every situation, and, he's absolutely obsessive about editing and all that kind of stuff. And his videos, every single one of them just comes out as, it's a masterpiece. It's really inspirational stuff to see, and really sort of aspirational stuff to kind of strive for if you make videos yourself. And obviously the 2 of them are now together. They're now engaged and they're now living together, having finally sort of come out with their relationship. And it's really interesting to see them sort of interacting with each other, because he's always kind of had this very kind of sort of documentary, serious approach to filmmaking. And of course, she's always had this kind of more light-hearted, sort of personable approach. And the two kind of go together quite well, and both just really interesting channels to watch. But particularly, obviously, a few series that he's done. He's best known for his Journey Across Japan series. I think he's done 4 of those now, where he's sort of picked areas of Japan to sort of travel across and do documentaries about the local life there and all that kind of stuff. Really, really high end, well produced stuff. He also does a series with a friend of his called Conor, who I'm not going to go into too much detail about in this particular episode. But he's done a series with him called Wacky Weekends, where they go and stay in, love hotels in Japan. If you're not familiar with the concept of a love hotel, essentially it's where kind of young Japanese people go to do what people do after dates, because they tend to live in quite small apartments and stuff with their parents, and don't really have much privacy. And a lot of these hotels have policies of, they won't let 2 men in together. So quite often they have to dress Conor up as a girl to get him into the hotel, which of course is hilarious in that very British way. So yeah, two British guys, I should mention. Chris Broad is from Kent, and Conor is Welsh. And Chris has this very kind of British, dry sense of humour, and this kind of quite sarcastic approach to things, which I think a lot of international viewers don't really get. And he's had quite a lot of abuse from people for being negative all the time. But if you're into that kind of dry British sense of humour and seeing amazing things presented in a really sort of high end and sophisticated and well produced way, then you certainly can't go wrong with his channel. It's quite an interesting combination of factors. And the third and final Japanese vlogger that I just thought I'd give a very special mention to, because she had a bit of a break from making videos, and we've literally just watched another one from her, which she's kind of just come back with. It's a channel called Tokidoki Traveler, and she's Australian. She's another channel that we started watching years and years ago, and she was in a relationship, and that relationship broke down, and she had a bit of a really kind of dark time, which she documented, and she shared with her viewers in quite sort of intimate detail, really, and it was just really relatable and just kind of very sort of different to the other stuff that we watch, really. But she's gone from strength to strength, and she seems to be back in her stride. And one thing I really like about her videos is kind of her editing style. It's not too serious. She doesn't take herself too seriously at all, and she puts stupid little bits in her videos, and memes and little on-screen captions, kind of pointing out silly things and stuff like that. And I really like that, and I've done that to some extent in some of my videos as well. And that was kind of directly inspired by her as well. Of course, you don't want like memes and rubbish going off every couple of seconds. It's a thing that's very easy to overdo. But even from a channel like that, you can take inspiration as a filmmaker and as a YouTuber, and it couldn't be any sort of further removed from the kind of stuff that I do as a retro computing and retro gaming kind of thing. But yeah, it just goes to show that you can get inspiration from anywhere. So a very recent discovery for me, despite them being a really huge and really kind of mainstream channel, is the Try Guys. And I discovered them thanks to the Colin and Samir podcast, which is a podcast for YouTube creators where they interview other creators about creator stuff. And they also, one of them did a really excellent interview on digital spaghetti quite recently as well, which is another great channel for creators. But we're not talking about channels for creators in this particular one. I'll link those in the usual place anyway. But yeah, the Try Guys are guys who try stuff. And again, there's kind of this common theme with all of these channels that we watch that, they're kind of very sort of wholesome, very likable, very nice people. They're not the sort of people that get in each other's faces or do pranks or kind of annoy each other. There's kind of a very nice, sort of very genuine chemistry between them. Like I say, a very recent discovery for us. I think the first video of theirs that I watched was them trying magic. So they had a professional magician come on who'd worked with like Penn and Teller and stuff, and been on TV in kind of his own right. And basically, the concept of the video was that he was going to teach them some magic tricks, and that at the end of the video, they were going to put on a magic show for teenagers, which are apparently the toughest audience when it comes to magic, which I can very much believe. And again, watching the interview, listening to some of the interviews that they've done, again, they are people with a background in filmmaking, which I think really does help with this stuff. Just the way their videos are sort of edited and structured, and there is a lot of thought that goes into the way that they're put together and the way that they're kind of paced and the kind of emotional journey that they're kind of designed to take people on. Which, for the type of channel that they are, just a bunch of guys being silly and trying new things, you'd think wouldn't be important. But I think there's a reason their channel is as big as it is, because they do take all of this stuff into consideration when they're kind of planning and putting together their videos. And everything just kind of comes together into this really nice package, and they're just really sort of well-made, entertaining, good videos. I'd put Mr. Beast, well, I wouldn't put all of his videos into that category, but I put a lot of Mr. Beast videos into that category as well. But the Try Guys, we watched another one, their latest one the other day, which was tattoos. So basically they went into a tattoo parlor and they had to try tattooing people. And of course they got their willing victims in. None of these guys had any experience doing tattooing before. I think only one of them actually had a tattoo as well. And, under the guidance of these professional tattooists, they had to give these customers tattoos. And then they were kind of judged at the end of it. And the whole thing was just really funny and really entertaining. And really well put together videos. And I think the inspiration there is more kind of listening to the interviews with them and about their process, and just really interesting in how they kind of structure their videos and how they edit them and how they kind of keep them entertaining. Evidently a lot of thought and a lot of care goes into the making of them. Finally, after all that rambling about filmmaking concepts and techniques and all of that high art stuff, I want to go right back to basics, and I'm going to talk about a channel that we've discovered very recently called Yellow Productions. Now, Yellow Productions is basically a one-man operation. It's a guy called Chris, and he records all of his videos on his phone, more often than not in a gimbal, but in some of his videos, I don't think he's even using that. I think he's literally just pointing his phone at stuff. And he uses a wireless lapel mic and basically does a running commentary of the stuff that he sees as he goes along. Now, Chris lives on the west coast of America, and we're actually planning a trip there ourselves later in the year, which is why I want to use him for a bit of inspiration. Because, he goes around LA and San Francisco and Las Vegas and kind of all those kind of west coast tourist destinations, and he gives us a bit of background information from himself as a local, best places to park and sort of where the cheap hotels are and all that kind of stuff. But he's essentially just like a tour guide, really. He's pointing his phone at stuff and just talking about what he sees. And, he has these very genuine interactions with people and with the world around him. And very much, comes across as a really nice kind of wholesome and helpful and friendly guy, which I know is a bit of a running theme with all of this stuff that we watch. And the reason I say that I want to use him for inspiration is because, like I say, we're going there ourselves later on this year. And there's some stuff that stuff that we were going to visit anyway, that he happens to have made videos on. Like the Musée Mécanique, I think it's called, in San Francisco, which is like a museum of old mechanical pinball machines and that kind of stuff. And I want to do a bit of a walk around of that myself and just kind of, share my own observations on my channel. And it's kind of reassuring to know that I can do something that will be interesting and kind of engaging and kind of entertaining and useful to people on a very sort of minimalist setup like he uses. It's quite inspiring from that point of view. He did a video on the Pinball Museum, which I very much wanted to go to in Las Vegas. And it's just him walking around the museum, pointing stuff out and saying, look at this machine, look at that machine. They've got some arcade machines and stuff in there as well, which he kind of glossed over, which I think I want to go into in a bit more detail on, when I cover it on my channel. But ultimately, we're there on holiday and we're there to have a nice time. And I don't really want making videos to kind of detract from that. I'm not a full-time content creator or anything like that. My life doesn't revolve around making content. But I think if there's an opportunity there, it would be good to kind of take that opportunity and do that in a kind of frictionless and seamless way. Very much like I did with my when I went to that exhibition of local game developers, that video that I did a while back that nobody watched. So I'm definitely going to be taking some inspiration from Chris from Yellow Productions. But anyway, that's just a journey through a few of the channels that my wife and I like to watch. If you have any channels that you like to watch that are well outside of the usual sphere of retro computing and whatnot, let me know. I'll be more than happy to check them out. Always interested in new and interesting content in the world of YouTube. But either way, that's all I have for you for this one. So hopefully I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe to Control Alt Reese as always. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend.